Commission. I think we're ready to begin the meeting, so if the staff could please start the introductory video. I'd like to call the June 4th, 2019 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin our public meeting this evening, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to recognize and remember the 12 public servants and citizens who died tragically in another senseless shooting in Virginia Beach this past week. So let's have a moment of silence for prayer and recognition of these public servants and citizens, and appreciation for the law enforcement personnel who risked their lives to end this tragic shooting. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. We got a couple of announcements. I'd like to announce that parking validation and bus passes are available for folks who are attending the County Commission meeting. Anyone who's attending this meeting who parked in the county's parking facility or used public transit to travel to this meeting can get validation for your parking or transit from the officers who are here with us at the meeting this evening. You can see them on your way out. I want to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters that are voted on by the board this evening. All right, we now come to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of the agenda as published?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We next come to good news, and Avril Pender, our county manager, will present this item.
Thank you, Commissioners. The Government Finance Office Association, or GFOA, established a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award to encourage and assist state and local government to prepare budget documents of the very highest quality that reflects both the guidelines established by the National Advisory Council on state and local government budgeting and the GFOA's best practices on budgeting. The guidelines are designed to assess how well the budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communication device. Receiving the award is a significant achievement by the local government. It reflects a commitment by the board and staff to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. I am pleased to recognize the budget staff for the work they did on the 2018-2019 budget. In addition to the performance management staff, they have also played a large part in assisting and augmenting the budget staff in compiling the data for the budget documents. Staff has consistently prepared documents that are proficient in all 4 categories. And I am proud tonight to award the budget staff with the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. This will be our 23rd consecutive year of receiving this award. So thank you to the budget staff. Jennifer Burnett and Matt Evans are here tonight. Thank you for your work and well done.
All right, congratulations. Thank you so much, Ms. Pender. Okay. Next up, we have a couple of public hearings. The first is on economic development. State law requires we have public hearings held on any economic development projects, and so we will go ahead and do that. And Rachel Nygaard and Tim Love are going to be presenting these items.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Nygaard, and I'm Strategic Partnerships Director for Buncombe County. Not usually the person that opens economic development hearings. I will pass shortly to Tim Love, who is our point person for economic development. But first, I'll cover the first of the 2 items that are on our list of economic development hearings for tonight. The reason that I'm here is that a couple of the projects that are part of the Strategic Partnerships grant applications for FY20 are economic development in nature. Those 2 projects are Carolina Small Business Development Fund and Center for Agriculture and Food Entrepreneurship. I'd like to point out that the amount that was advertised in the economic development hearing is the amount requested. So the way that these work is that we follow certain noticing practices so that we can place a notice to the public 10 days in advance so that members of the community can come out and weigh in about this potential appropriation. So when we advertised this, what we put in was the total requested $100,000 for Carolina Small Business Development Fund. That is for their Western Women's Business Center project, and an allocation of up to $50,000 for Center for Agricultural and Food Entrepreneurship, and that's for the project Blue Ridge Food Ventures. The proposed amounts for these 2 projects are listed later in your packet for this evening's meeting. The Carolina Small Business Development Fund is proposed as part of your Strategic Partnership grant allocations at an amount of $34,787. Center for Agricultural and Food Entrepreneurship is not proposed to receive a grant for FY20. These 2 economic development hearings are part of a larger set of hearings that will occur and that Tim will talk you through, and then we'll be able to do in one batch once we describe all of them.
Right, and we're not gonna, on these economic development items, we are not taking any action tonight. Action will be taken when we approve our budget in 2 weeks from now. So the purpose of this agenda item tonight is to hold the public hearings.
That's accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. As Rachel said, in addition to the strategic partnership grants, there are 2 economic development partners that the county has been working with for a number of years that are included in this year's budget. Both of those, by law, should be heard in the public hearing as well. So our 2 partners, Max, are the requested appropriations for economic development partners. So first you see the Asheville-Buncombe Regional Sports Commission. This is for an appropriation up to $70,000. The current budget is at $45,000, if you were paying attention to that. Asheville-Buncombe Regional Sports Commission is responsible for events like the Southern Conference Tournament as well as Fed Cup, and helps us with recruiting of other recreational activities like baseball tournaments and things like that. The Asheville Buncombe Economic Development Coalition, or the EDC, as you've probably more frequently heard of them, as an appropriation not to exceed $400,000. That is a $50,000 increase from last year's appropriation. The reason for that increase relates to site analysis and site planning, which is basically looking at the future of economic development across the county, specifically industrial sites and infrastructure needs. Shifting gears slightly into our third table, these are appropriations for expected expenditures for previously approved economic development agreements. And so this section's a little bit different because each of these items have already been heard in a public hearing. In many cases, in all cases I should say, there's an economic development agreement that has already been put in place and signed by this board as well as the specific companies. That said, the statute requires that we hold a public hearing for any appropriation related to these on an annual basis. So while you've already heard of these companies and you've already voted on them, we're not asking you to vote again this evening. We do need to talk about them in today's public hearing. So starting at the top, we've got General Electric Company and Unison Engine Components. This is who you know as GE. We have 2 economic development agreements with them for a total of $496,333 across the 2 agreements for this year's appropriation. This is for the creation and maintenance of 183 jobs and approximately $230 million in capital investment by the year 2021. Next, we have Ingalls Markets. This is an appropriation of approximately $170,000 for this year. Relates to the creation and maintenance of 160 new jobs as well as capital investment of $85 million by 2021. As a note for those in the audience, this refers to the Ingalls Distribution Center and is not a retail grant, which is not something that we allow under our policy. Next up is Jacob Holm Industries for $39,000 and the creation and maintenance of 66 new jobs and approximately $45 million in capital investment by the year 2020. As a slight note, this is a carry-forward amount. The Jacob Holm Economic Development Agreement and its deadlines end this year, but per the contract, there is an amount of time to allow them to catch up on any targets that may have been missed. Next up is Linamar North Carolina Incorporated. This is $1 million, which is for the creation and maintenance of 800 jobs and $315 million in capital investment by the year 2024. As a reminder, we recently consolidated and renegotiated this agreement at one of your previous meetings just a couple weeks ago. Last on our list is New Belgium Brewing for $650,000 and the maintenance and creation of 154 new jobs and $175 million by the year 2028. As I said earlier, this is a public hearing. There is no vote or further action required from the board, but does provide an opportunity for the public to comment on any of these agreements that are existing, as well as those economic development partners and strategic partners that Rachel spoke to earlier. Are there any questions?
We can have one public hearing on all of these items.
Correct.
Okay. I don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead and hold the public hearing. Again, we're not taking any action tonight. The amounts indicated here in most cases are what are requested, not necessarily what will be awarded. And the projects that have already been approved in the past, these are reflections of what will happen if the economic development criteria requirements are achieved. So it's not automatic. All right, we'll open the public hearing at 5:15. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on any of these items? Mr. Rice. And if you're going to comment, please let us know your name and where you live. And you've got 3 minutes, and there'll be an orange light, let you know when you've got 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I would like to request from the county manager and the staff to have some kind of formulation on what we just heard and what the desired benefits from this. This little song and dance of the stuff that we just heard, that's a lot of money. You hold the community grant people to the line and you make them prove whether they need it or not and how that goes. I think these jobs that's being thrown out here like it's candy we need to hold them accountable and see just how many jobs they really do create for the money, and see if they really do need what we're talking about. These companies are well off. I don't know why we support them to begin with. So I'd like to ask the board to, this is not something new. I've asked this before, and it was supposed to be put on the website. And it showed each time, you know, when the grants come up, it's supposed to show this, that what was good about it, what was not good about it. And I'd like to know where that's at. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Don Yelton, Jupiter. I got to get way back here. This microphone, I mean, I got to talk real fast that way you know what I'm saying, which is what happens. I know you can't hear me. That's all right. I can't hear the people that make the presentation, and they're talking so fast you don't know what they're saying. That's where Jerry Rice is right. How many of you up there heard every word they said? You didn't. When you can't hear, even if the cause is good, what does it look like to all the public? If they're not here with their hand out for money, it looks like it's already been decided who's going to get what, and they're up here doing their little spiel so they can get it. I second what Jerry said. I want to know where my money goes, what it's spent on, and one of them I basically picked up, I think, and had $45,000, but they want $75,000. What did they do with the $45,000? Does it justify the $75,000? Remember, I told you all, I see a train coming. You're borrowing from your contingency fund, and next year, you're going to have to go up on taxes to meet your obligation. You've already been told that. And so I suggest strongly, some of you got a financial background. You better start speaking up. You better stop appeasing all these handouts, hoping you're going to buy votes. Because you're going to buy enough votes to bankrupt the county. And Buncombe will end up like every major city in America that's run by a particular party. And I hate to bring party in, because the Democrat Party or the Republican Party is not the solution. The solution is 7 of you up there saying what you think, looking in your heart, and being honest and open with us, the people. And quit trying to shuffle things behind the scenes. Now, I've got a comment I'm going to make in public comment, and I'm going to be thanking you all for something. But this county has a tendency to be like an old-time saying, Al. One step forward and two backward. One step forward and two backward. And those backward steps, folks, we can't afford. So better be 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. I want to know what my money is buying, and I ask for a report here before anybody gets any more money on what they have done. And I also would like to see you instruct people on how to make a presentation that people could hear, and not talk so fast you can't even hear.
Great, thank you so much. Anyone else? All right, we will close. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Smithson Mills, and I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Agricultural and Food Entrepreneurship. We are an applicant for economic development funds from the county. We are the owner of Blue Ridge Food Ventures, which is a shared-use food processing center located at the AB Tech Inca campus. We're a food business incubator. We've successfully launched many different food businesses that have relocated to permanent facilities in Buncombe County. Some of these include No Evil Foods, Roots Hummus, and several others that have ended up creating a lot of jobs and economic opportunity. We're coming to the county this year to ask for $50,000 in support for our program. due to the fact that we've successfully graduated many of our most successful companies, we are asking for support for a short, limited period of time so that we can rebuild our user base and continue to create jobs and economic opportunity in the county. If any of you have not heard about Blue Ridge Food Ventures or would like to learn more, I'd like to invite you to come and visit us at the AB Tech Inca campus. We'd like to give you a tour, talk about what we do, and show how we are an engine of economic development and growth in the county. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
So I've got a question on the list. Can I ask it, Chairman? Sure. So Center for Agricultural and Food Entrepreneurship, is that Blue Ridge Food Ventures?
Correct.
Or why is it not listed as Blue Ridge Food Ventures? Because speak slowly and loud. Because that's what I know them by.
I can take a crack at answering that, and
Please.
we have the Smithson with us if you want him to answer.
No.
But essentially, Center for Agriculture is the parent entity, and Blue Ridge Food Ventures is the project. And so when the application came to the county for a grant, the entity that made application was Center for Agriculture and Food Entrepreneurship.
So it's Blue Ridge Food Ventures.
Oh, I know it is.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
So-
It's essentially a subsidiary.
Yeah.
And it's very easy, when you're going through all these, get confused. But anyhow, I'm just wondering why. So I'll just make a statement, I'll hush. In the future, if it's coming in as a parent and we know them by someone else, and we probably should have all the names and information on it. It's not directed at you, it's just directed out there, so.
That's great
Okay.
feedback, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. And we'll close the public hearing on this item at 5:23. And we are also going to have our public hearing on the FY 2020 budget, which was presented at the last commission meeting, but this will be our official public hearing on it. Again, we're taking no action on it tonight. Our plan is to vote on the county budget at our next county commission meeting. Ms. Pender.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tonight, as you stated, this is a public hearing on the recommended fiscal year 2020 budget. I will give a brief recap of the key elements included in the budget prior to opening the public hearing for comments. The recommended budget totals $334,517,752. In fiscal year 18, during the tax revaluation, the board reduced the tax rate to 53.9 cents. Last year, it reduced it by 1 penny more. I'm recommending that we maintain that rate of 52.9 cents for fiscal year 2020. The balanced budget includes an appropriated fund balance of $12,980,963. This fund balance appropriation amount will maintain the board's policy of 15%, and in fact, just slightly above the policy level, with an estimated percentage of 15.28% after appropriation. This budget also continues to advance the board's priorities. I have included a level of funding for each priority for 2020, in addition to increased investments in affordable housing and early childhood education. The recommended budget includes program investments in affordable housing that totals $3,812,000. Following last week's Affordable Housing Committee meeting, a recommendation from committee is that $680,000 be granted to Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity in 2020 for the development of the Old Haywood Road neighborhood. In addition, the committee recommends a reduction of $88,155, bringing the total for affordable housing at $3.7 million. Adjustments to the total amount will be reflected in the adopted budget pending final board approval. Additionally, we are proposing investments in early childhood of $3.6 million. Strategic partnership grants funding is included in the recommended budget at $1.2 million, which includes $605,000 for strategic partnership grants, $500,000 for Isaac Coleman grants, and $100,000 for Tipping Point grants. The board has requested an increase of 4.24%, or $25,125, to the available award amount for strategic partnership grants, which is in alignment with our overall unrestricted revenue growth. The total recommended strategic partnership grants is $630,805. This includes funding across the functional areas of culture and recreation, economic and physical development, education, and human services. This will go to 26 different nonprofits that are serving our community and advancing your priorities. Adjustments to the total amount, again, will be reflected in the adopted budget pending final board approval. The budget provides funding for 21 new recommended positions. This includes 10 in the sheriff's office, 6 patrol officers, and 4 detention officers, 9 in public health as care coordination staff members, 1 heating and air specialist in general services, and 1 assistant county manager. The budget provides the ability to begin addressing salary inequities and living wage. I'm proposing $15 per hour for all full and part-time regular positions based on the 2,080 hours per year. $400,000 is included to begin addressing pay and compensation inequities in the organization. The largest component of the general fund is funding for education. I'm recommending a growth rate of 4.24% in alignment with the county's unrestricted revenue growth to fund the K-12 systems as well as AB Tech. Based on that formula, the recommended budget for Buncombe County Schools is $68,052,374, $12,626,000 for Asheville City Schools, and $6,775,000 for AB Tech. Following the presentation of the recommended budget earlier this month, we met with the leaderships of both school systems. Buncombe County Schools identified their non-negotiable needs as funding related to salary adjustments of approximately $3.7 million. There are various scenarios, and the timing of the proposed increase from the state is still unknown. Based on this, the decision in agreement with Dr. Baldwin is to leave the budget as recommended with the awareness that staff from the schools and the county budget office will come together to evaluate the necessary salary-related increases following the state budget adoption. We will bring any additional funding requests back to the Board of Commissioners. As a reminder, the local public schools appropriation, the total funding amount allocated to Buncombe County Schools, determine the share that is allocated to Asheville City Schools based on the average daily membership between the two school systems. I'm recommending funding for capital and information technology needs, $7.6 million to be financed with debt proceeds, with payments beginning in the year 2021, $1.1 million in pay-as-you-go projects, and $479,000 for IT needs that would assist us in being more effective and efficient in service deliveries. I am proposing using savings generated from prior capital projects to pay for new capital projects and IT needs. The current savings available is $1.6 million. The total savings I'm recommended to be used for PAYGO and IT is $1.56. This will leave a balance in the capital project savings account of $23,435. The commission also sets the rates for the fire district. You've heard from the 6 districts that are requesting a tax increase. Staff has additionally met with the 6 districts, and we've reviewed their financial data. At this time, I'm recommending the following at their increase requests. 1.5 cents increase for Anchor, resulting in a tax rate of 10.5 cents. 3 cent increase for Fairview, resulting in a tax rate of 14.5 cents. 2 cent increase for French Broad, resulting in a tax rate of 17 cents. For Riceville, 2.5 cent increase, resulting in a tax rate of 14.5 cents. And West Buncombe, 1 cent increase, resulting in a tax rate of 14 cents. I'm recommending the Upper Hominy District maintain a flat rate of 14.5 cents. The reference documents for the recommended budget are available online for review, including the budget in brief, the Budget Explorer, strategic partnership grants, and a summary of the fire district tax rates. Tonight, we will ask that you conduct a public hearing to get public input with the idea that we would adopt the budget on June 18th at your regular scheduled board meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 5:31. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on the proposed budget? Yes, ma'am. We'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Ruth O'Donnell. I live in Weaverville. I'm a member of your library board. When I was interviewed by many of you for that position, we discussed together that this library system, the Buncombe County Public Libraries, is in need of some significant additional funding in order to bring it into the 21st century. I've come to you tonight because you've made a major step towards doing that. Not a financial one, but you've hired a new director who is capable of making that happen if given the help that he needs. I took a look at costs expended, local money expended in some of this county's peer counties. And I can, for example, tell you that Henderson County, not really peer since it's less than half the population of Buncombe, spends $24.50 per capita on their libraries. This is fiscal year 2018 data, the most recent available for all the counties in North Carolina. That year you spent $20.84 per capita, $4 less. A county like, let's say, a Durham County with about 303 population that year spent $37.94 per capita on libraries. So in general, I'm encouraging you to take another look at this year's, the 2020 budget, and put more money into your libraries. Specifically, I'm requesting on the behalf of many people, advisory board members, friends of the library members, many of whom are here tonight, wearing red, as I am. Some are not, so there's more than you think. But we are specifically requesting that you put into the budget the position that your new library director asked for, an assistant director. This system had an assistant director for many years, and it needs one now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Donnell. All right, who's next? All right. Who's next? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I think I'm going to ask that you not hold up the signs because it blocks the views of the people behind you. But we got your message. Okay, thanks.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Chavez. I'm a resident of the city of Asheville, and I'm also the executive director of Asheville Greenworks, a nonprofit focused on litter cleanups, waste reduction, and trees and urban forestry. Tonight I'm speaking to you about our request for strategic partnership funds. And it wasn't detailed in the presentation, but we requested $50,000, and that is what we have received for the past 3 years in a row. This year, that amount, the suggested amount for our funding, was reduced to $40,000. I'm here to ask you to reconsider this and fully fund our request. The Greenworks budget is about $500,000. The Strategic Partnership Fund grant has made up only about 10% of our overall budget, and now that's being decreased to 8%. Litter cleanups and hard to recycle events make up about 20% of what we do, but because we mobilize thousands of volunteers on these projects, we can do it on a shoestring budget. What it would cost the county to take on what we're doing would be a lot more than what we're asking for. In 2018, we had 2,643 volunteers who performed 7,473 hours of work, which is the equivalent of 3.5 full-time employees. If the county hired 3.5 full-time employees at a living wage of $15 an hour plus fringe, that would be about $150,000 a year. And those employees would have to pick up trash by hand every day that they're employed, like our volunteers do year-round. And if they did that, they could expect to pick up 69,551 pounds of trash, which includes 630 tires. And if they weren't doing that, that amount of trash would remain in our environment, on our roadsides, in our neighborhoods, and in our rivers and streams. And then there's hard to recycle. These highly anticipated events take place 5 times a year and have been growing steadily over the past few years. And they keep breaking collection records. The amount of materials that we collect and divert from the landfill has increased by nearly 40% in the last 3 years. We're talking about 160,000 pounds of hard-to-recycle materials that are not going into the landfill. If anything, with this rate of increase in our volunteers and in the amount of trash they're collecting in our hard-to-recycle events, we need more support from the county, not less. There is no one else to provide these services. If Greenworks is not doing it, who will? And where will that trash go? So I beg you to please
All right.
fully fund
Your
us.
time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Yes, sir. Mr. Hardaway.
Good evening. I'm Pastor Hardaway. Pastor's not my birth name, but it's the name you would recognize me by. I pastor Rock Hill Missionary Baptist Church, also the executive director of Project Lighten Up, which do a summer camp and a after-school program. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you all for your support. We appreciate it, your support of our summer day camp and support of our after-school program. We understand that the first 2,000 days are very important in the child's educational development, and we agree that's important. But we also believe that the next 2,000 days are just equally as important, and we try to make an impact on those 2,000 days. We have a summer camp that based upon Johns Hopkins studies, they say that students lose 2 grade levels of math and reading during the summer. And our summer camp is the only summer camp that intentionally blends education and recreation into the summer day camp, into the summer program. We do reading, we do math, personal development, arts and craft, and recreation. So we try to blend that. We want them to have a not just a recreational summer, but an educational and recreational experience. We also provide low-income families an opportunity to send their children to camp. Many families cannot afford to send their child to camp just because the cost is prohibitive. It's just too expensive for them. So we provide that need that says that we want to provide everyone an opportunity to go to summer camp that blends education and recreation into their daily activities. We believe it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to financially support that child at the same time. And so again, we're grateful, we're thankful. We appreciate what you've done. We appreciate the funding from the county, from the city, and from our community. And we'd like to invite you, because we believe that our community needs to invest in their children as well. We'd like to invite you to our annual radiothon that occurs Friday, June 7th and Saturday, June 8th on WRES radio station 100.7 on the FM dial where the respect is in the music. We invite you to participate in our radiothon when we ask our community to support a summer camp that blends education and recreation into their daily activities. Incidentally, 7 of the 13 students from 2012, 4 have graduated from college, 3 are going to graduate, so we are effective. Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Pastor Hardaway. Yes, sir, we'll go next to you, and then the gentleman to your right, you'll be next, okay? Yep, come on up.
Hi, my name is Michael Carter. I live in 5 Points in Asheville. And I work with the STEP program, the Skills Training Employment Program. STEP, along with Green Opportunities, are the only contractors for this county's employment and training program. STEP is the first E&T program of its kind in North Carolina, actually. We applied for strategic partnership funds and did not receive an allotment. I wanted to briefly just tell you what we do. And I'm speaking to you today as a private citizen and county resident. The goal of the STEP program is sustainable living wage employment for county residents receiving food assistance. We exclusively only serve county residents receiving food assistance. Since our inception in November 2016, we have increased the average wage of participants who in county programming, county employment and training programming, by $3. So before we started, it was $8.50. Now our average wage is $11.65, and it's still climbing. Hopefully, we're going to get to $13.65, which is a living wage rate. That's our goal. That's our aspiration. STEP has also taken the lead in coordinating community workforce development projects throughout our community, principally the renovation of Lee Walker Heights. So we're working with the developer Weaver Cook to structure an AB Tech training program for participants, low-income participants exclusively. And after folks finish that training class, they are guaranteed interviews for Weaver Cook to work on the redevelopment of Lee Walker Heights. And all of y'all know that's like a 20-month construction project at living wage rates. So we're really, really proud of the work we're doing with that project. We've created similar or supported similar projects in healthcare, childcare, because y'all know we have a childcare crisis, and the nonprofit sector. Since January 2017, our clients have received over 280 certifications. It's higher than that. It's pushing over 300. Obtained 139 new positions. STEP plans to continue our client-centered work, and we will use Buncombe strategic partnership funds to support staff salary, and our scholarship fund, which covers tuition, books, and certification fees for residents in this county. So we create opportunities. We don't create handouts. We open up opportunities for folks to walk through. They walk through those doors. We also just recently, I got to brag on my team and the folks I work with. We received a no error audit from the state, and that's real hard to do. So we're really, really proud of that as well. So, I'm not just bragging. I'm saying that we have tangible results. So I would like to highlight that any funds provided to the STEP program also through the county are reimbursable by the federal government up to 50%. We rely on local and state level support so the federal government can match that support. So if you give us $1, they give us 50 cents back. That's sustainability, if you ask me. Contributions from the county, we serve are highly prized and revered because we can use to leverage them for more resources. I would like to invite all of you commission members to come to one of our orientations. We do them every Tuesday, every Thursday at 40 Cox Avenue. Come see what we do. Come see the transformation that we make in our communities. You're welcome. All right, y'all have a great day.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Jim.
I'm Jim Barrett. I'm the Executive Director of Pisgah Legal Services. And I wanted to thank you guys for your support in the past of our programs that help people. Actually, last year, over 8,800 Buncombe County residents obtained various quantifiable benefits worth more than $6,400,000. These clients average $12,000 per household, so they're very low-income people. And we're helping them, most of them, stop domestic violence, prevent it, and also prevent homelessness. Of those 8,800 people, 3,574 were children, and those children are obviously very low income. So I'm here because in the past, our funding was through contract in Health and Human Services for $230,000 a year. That's been for a number of years, and it helped offset funding cuts from the state government that were over $250,000 since the recession. And for reasons I don't quite understand, that contract through Health and Human Services has been reduced to $100,000, and we can only do work that they refer to us. And in the past, they haven't been very, very good at referring those cases, so we worry that we won't be able to bill all that $100,000. So The only thing we need to do is put an application in for the strategic partnership grant, and that's why you see that large request that you hadn't seen previously. So I understand that you are generously offering $96,400 in that, so that's a big chunk of the partnership grant, so we're grateful for that. It leaves us with $33,600 less than we've been getting, and we're also due to experience a $25,000 reduction in services for seniors. So if you add that up, that's about the amount of a staff attorney, and one of our staff attorneys average serving 500 people a year. So it's a significant cut. If there's any way you can increase it, we would appreciate it. We had over 15,000 volunteer hours, over 1,600 donors, and we appreciate all the support we get from the community. We just said the Pledge of Allegiance, and it said, "and justice for all." So we think this is a very important investment for the county, and you get a huge return on that investment. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thanks, Jim. All right, yes, your turn.
Good evening, Chairman Newman, County Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is David Thompson, and I'm the Director of Student Services for Buncombe County Schools. In that role, I direct and advocate for the behavioral health and safety needs of all of our students and the subsequent impact on our students' ability to benefit from good instruction and achieve academically. I believe our district has a clear understanding that many of our students live in chronic stress due to homelessness, family struggles, economic uncertainty, opioid or other addiction, and sometimes major traumatic events. The disruption and emotional dysregulation that occurs from these adverse events negatively impacts student achievement, discipline, and academic achievement. However, we have hope and science on our side that through appropriate intervention and supports, we can positively change students' lives and improve their resilience. However, it's imperative to do this that we have a full continuum of supportive services that include instruction in some social emotional skills for all students, very structured and evidence-based supplemental services for students whose behavior requires additional supports, and intensive and targeted interventions for students who require individual academic supports, specific behavior plans, and mental health or other community services. I want to share with you some data so that you can fully understand the frequency and acuity of the behavioral health needs in Buncombe County Schools using some 2017-18 data. We're still collecting data for this year. The number of suicide assessments that were conducted in our schools for that year was 301. Please understand, these are not exclusive to our middle and high school students, and this is likely an underestimate of that. A full third of those assessments were done in our elementary schools. The number of school safety threat assessments was 86. All of these assessments resulted in development of safety plans, specific interventions that school personnel implement, monitor, and refer to community mental health agencies. Most of these students also receive school-based mental health services, as well as modified academic settings, schedules, and juvenile court or SRO follow-up. The number of students referred for school mental health services, school-based mental health services from our 3 agency providers was 1,150. Of those students, 790 actually received the services. Some of the reasons for the discrepancies are due to parent choice, but others are due to the frequent turnover or capacity of those agencies to provide that. When any of these barriers occur, we don't forget about our students. Our teachers, counselors, social workers, behavior specialists, school nurses, and administrators continue to provide behavior supports and crisis management, but without that therapeutic intervention that addresses the underlying need of issues. These numbers have faces, and we serve all students. Buncombe County cares deeply about our students, and we strongly encourage you to support that.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Pat, yep.
My name is Pat Bryant, and I'm proud to serve as the Irwin District Representative on the Buncombe County Board of Education. Let me start by thanking you for the jobs you do and for your service. The jobs are not easy. I'm here representing the board during the public hearing regarding the proposed budget allotment from the commission in relation to the request we made. The current recommended budget line item allotment, if I read it correctly, is a $2,768,055 increase from last year. I'm going to touch on 3 areas briefly related to our request. First, our request for what we think the salary increases, health insurance cost increases, and employer matching retirement contributions coming from the state of North Carolina that we need to apply to the 700-plus employees funded by the County of Buncombe in Buncombe County Schools came to a total of $4,205,305. The County of Buncombe has for years seen fit, properly so I would add, to add local dollars to fund so many items the state of North Carolina doesn't fully fund, such as health educators, string music instructors, band, additional counselors, curriculum coaches, teacher assistants, CTE, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I ask on behalf of the full board that you fund this dollar amount fully. Should the numbers from Raleigh come in less than what our best educated guess is, we will certainly do whatever needs to be done in the way of a reversion of funds so as not to take advantage of that if you awarded something above what we actually received. Second, you've heard from Mr. Thompson in relation to the funding for additional behavioral support positions that totals a new request in the amount of $486,000. I can't add much to what he said, but those things are needed and it would be a good start. Lastly, I ask that you fund the board's request to keep 20 teacher assistant positions in place and working with our students in Buncombe County Schools. The total of that request we made, I believe, was $728,640. In asking for this specific item, I will ask you to think of the following. I hear many times, we do not need teacher assistants in the classrooms, or we didn't have them when I was in school. Similar thoughts to that. I ask that you think of the following scenario if you or someone you know has that thought. Think of a 7 or 8-year-old child of yours or a grandchild, and imagine they're having a birthday party. Maybe it's at your home. The invitation list is 16 to 18 long, and all of those 7 and 8-year-olds show up to the party, which will only last for 2 hours. None of the parents offer to stay and assist, and you only have 2 bathrooms in your home. You have to make sure that one of the children gets his medicine an hour before he eats pizza, cake, and ice cream. You have to make sure one of the children doesn't eat the ice cream because he's allergic. And at various times during the party, 4 or 5 kids have to go to the bathroom at the same time. Remember, you're by yourself, and you only have 2 bathrooms. One of the kids falls down playing a party game and his knee is bleeding. You got to keep them on task
sorry,
and do
your
what you
time's up.
can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ryan. Thank you for serving on the school board. All right, yes, ma'am, get next. And then you can go following her.
Good evening. My name is Lee Ann Smith. I live in Arden. I am a county resident. I wasn't planning to talk tonight because I emailed each of you to request that you consider fully funding the Greenworks request. So I want to back up what Dawn said earlier. I know you guys each of you have a really difficult job ahead of you because so many of these organizations are worthy, and I appreciate your consideration. I just want to present to you my personal, in addition to being on the board of Greenworks, which I haven't been on for quite a year yet, but I am also a public school teacher, a public school librarian, to be exact, at Glen Arden. And I have a little, along with a couple of other teachers, I've developed a little environmental and sustainability club with my elementary school students called Eco Readers. And we work on efforts that will be friendly to the school environment, and in the end, it ends up saving the school money. And Greenworks has helped us over the last 4 or 5 years at no cost to the school, no cost to the parents, no cost to the students. They have come in completely free and helped us put in compost bins. We're not, the effort isn't big enough to do school-wide composting yet, but we compost on small scale, and that saved hundreds of pounds of waste from going in the landfill. So it's an exponential effect, and the organization, through all the volunteer efforts, does a lot of, they lead a lot of projects that help make the county more beautiful. And that's part of the reason that some of these larger corporations, which we saw in the presentation earlier, want to be in Asheville. So I hope that you all will consider that as you make your decisions, and thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Matilda Bliss. I live in Asheville, and I'm here as a member of Asheville Showing Up for Racial Justice, and I also have been doing some work for Better Buses Together. And we're asking for a county miracle for some help with our bus system and being able to serve everybody in Asheville and everybody in Buncombe who needs to get to work. They need to get their kids home from school. They need to get their kids to extracurricular activities, including sports and arts. And we're looking for $850,000 if possible, or at least halfway would be wonderful. And the county has a commitment through 5307 funds. And we're looking at the fact that affordable housing is a strategic priority of the county. But you have to be able to get folks to their life. Anything that happens between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. that any of y'all do, we have members of our community who are not able to do those things because of our bus system. And so we're looking for bus service that can help us live our lives. And also, for instance, one of the things that are included in the new transit master plan are extended frequency, serving, for instance, AB Tech. And so we're serving institutions such as AB Tech, and that is being funded through the city right now. And in order to extend those hours into the evening, serving AB Tech, we're looking for a little bit of help. And so, yes, as a taxpayer of District 1, just up here with Better Buses Together and Asheville Showing Up for Racial Justice, asking that the county provide a little bit of help in order to serve all of our community, especially low-income folks who are disproportionately disabled folks and people of color. And so thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
All right, thanks, Matilda. Yep, Vicki. Okay, and you can go next. All right, great, thanks.
Hi, I'm Vicki Meath. I am a Asheville City resident and Buncombe County resident, and also Executive Director of Just Economics. I'm coming to you tonight with 2 quick thank yous and 1 request. First, I want to thank you so much for your partial funding of our Strategic Partnership Fund request. Second, I want to thank you and I want to express gratitude towards the county manager for working with us, and Brownie Newman for working on the effort to raise all workers to a $15 an hour start to begin with. We're in full support of that and hope that follows through on. And then third, I just want to kind of back up and co-sign what Matilda just said, that we're hoping that the county will see the need to invest in transit and to support county residents that are transit dependent, and that helps to get county residents to and from work, and to kind of work with the city to help continue to support the transit master plan. The transit master plan implementation involves routes that go in all 3 districts in the county and serve all 3 districts, and we hope that you can find some ways to work with the city to invest in the art system. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Vicki. And yes, ma'am, you may go next. And who else? You can go following this young lady.
thank you for your time this evening. My name is Laura Sexton. I am a Buncombe County resident, and I have been a registered dietitian in this county for 6 years. I am here on behalf of the Asheville-Buncombe Food Policy Council and the Food Waste Reduction and Recovery Collaborative in Buncombe County. We are a collaborative of folks who are working in nonprofit, public, and private sectors, and we're on the ground. We have the perspective, expertise, and innovation to inform cross-sector initiatives. This work is critical as we seek real solutions and work to position Buncombe County as the forefront in North Carolina and the United States as we pursue aggressive and important food waste reduction goals. In 2015, the Environmental Protection Agency announced the first ever domestic goal to reduce food loss and waste by half by the year 2030. By taking action on this 2030 food waste reduction goal, the U.S. can help feed the hungry with existing resources, save money for families and businesses, and protect our environment. In Buncombe County, our food insecurity rate is 12.7%. That's over 30,000 neighbors, many of them children. They're suffering from a lack of adequate, nutritious, and reliable food. This is a staggering statistic in the face of the over 27,000 tons of edible food waste, not just waste, edible food waste, that is clogging up our landfills each year and putting a lot of pressure on our infrastructure. Please consider funding our food waste collaborative. This will help us host a food waste summit and spark private enterprise and public-private investment in solutions that feed our children and families with perfectly edible food, while reducing the burden on our resources and infrastructure. And I would like to end by saying that throwing away food is a privilege, but it is unacceptable in the face of hunger. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Laura. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Wingeter, and I'm with the Council on Aging of Buncombe County. I live out in Leicester off of Newfound Road, and I have something different. I just want to thank all the commissioners for considering some support for our program, a strategic partnership to help with our benefit enrollment program. This is a program that will seek out people who are on Medicare. Everything is not covered at 100% on Medicare, and it can become extremely expensive. And this program will help those low-income Medicare recipients here in Buncombe County sign up for programs that will help cover their costs, whether it's for prescription drugs, a visit to the doctor's office, or other medical procedures that can be extremely expensive because they're not covered at 100%. So all we want to do is thank you so much for including us in the strategic partnership and recommending us for funding. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Rice, and who else? Mr. Yelton, you'll go next, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I think the taxpayers need some relief. When you start budgeting money from the mission sale before you ever get it in your hand, before it ever gets in the bank, there's something wrong with that picture. That just tells me how greedy you are. The taxpayers need some relief, and I'm one of them. I'm here for the taxpayer. We can hand out money all day. There's a deep pit that you'll never fill with money. There's something that we're lacking here in Buncombe County, and that is a moral compass that would guide the things that you need to correct this county with. And that is that we need church leaders that stands up and speaks to the community about the morals in their churches and in the community. And when we have commissions and city councils that can do nothing but advertise beer city and gambling, what do you expect the results to be whenever you come to the commission and start listening to what the schools are in need of? Now let me tell you something. When you see this, what the schools is presenting today, there's another side to that story, and it ain't what you heard. When these children are getting in trouble at school, they're children that needs education. It's not about good parents, not about bad grandmas. That's not what it is. we are lacking teachers in the classroom that has the knowledge and understanding to teach the class. The teachers that in our classrooms, most of them don't even have a marriage or they're living with somebody. And we have people that does not have the compass to direct our children. And what happens? They end up into social service, and the way they get there is all these counselors and all these social workers are directing these kids that gets in trouble. Well, why are they getting in trouble? We don't have a classroom teacher that has what it needs to direct the class. We used to have it. Mr. Thompson knows what I'm talking about. But we don't have that today, because the older ones is passed on and the young ones, they're still in the learning curve. And they're not getting the training they should either. Talk about how they get there. They're referred from the classroom teacher. They're referred to the principal. The principal refers them out. The counselor refers them out. You know what happens? They go into DSS and juvenile justice. For 20 years, these are statistics of your own. For 20 years, 1,600 a year is going into DSS. What happens? These families are split up into referrals all over this county. And these referrals are going to mental health. Everybody's nuts in Asheville and in Buncombe County. They're nuts. When I say nuts, everybody is supposed to have mental health problems.
Your time's up.
You know,
Mr. Yelton, your turn.
We'll finish up.
Well, I'm a nut. Long time ago, I asked this commission, what does each library cost? Ain't got my answer yet. The only thing they don't show maintenance. In other words, if somebody goes out to the library and paints, they leave the maintenance department. They don't fill out a little sheet, and that sheet doesn't say where they're going, and that sheet's not charged to the library. The maintenance eats it. Until you can tell me what each library costs, why should you give them more money? I'm not against the libraries, but I'm against the county way they're managing them. I want to know what it costs for each library. Had to do a lot of digging to find out how much it cost to even participate in getting electronic books, didn't we, from the state? And we got it. Pick up trash. Who should be picking up trash? I'm looking at our new sheriff. You and the city ought to get together. And somebody ought to have a choice. If I'm sentenced to 6 months in jail for being drunk, okay, you go out and pick up trash, behave yourself, do what you're supposed to do. We'll cut the 6 months into 3. That saves you money coming and going. And also teaches someone responsibility, which is part of the problem about morals that Jerry was talking about. The camp, the nonprofit camp, sir, that's great. But I'd like to make a suggestion to you that you form a nonprofit, and any school teacher which wants to make more money, you show that they've contributed so many dollars per hour to your camp, and that'll reduce their taxes, and that'll give them a little bit of a raise and a little bit more money in their pocket. And they might feel good about doing something good, and then they might save a little bit of money. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That would be wonderful. So think about that. I'm serious. See, you got to think outside the box. But you got to ask common, simple questions. Buses, what's the ridership per route? I've asked that in here. Remember, Mike, I've asked that. What's the ridership per route? You can't even tell me. They get up here and want more money and don't say how many people riding that bus. I see it in Weaverville, 1 or 2 people on it. You could run a darn cab cheaper than you could run the bus. And besides, the bus is a contract. Somebody's pocketing some money that owns the buses. Who is it? Used to be Youngblood. I don't know who it is now. Start asking those questions. These are questions you commissioners ought to be asking rather than looking down at your desk and saying, yeah, Yelton's crazy. You're darn right I'm crazy. I'm crazy enough to tell you the truth. And I'm going to say one thing about we need to get out there and start writing tickets on 26. We'll give a whole lot of money to the school. Every morning you ought to be out on 26. I don't care. People are going to hate me for saying that, especially when you get the sheriff out there pulling over. But, son, every one of them's running 75 and 80 coming in of a morning. And guess where that ticket money goes? It goes to the school. Now, finally, I got 8 seconds. Increase the tax rate 1.1%. And I challenge you to have 1% left over at the end of the year.
Thanks, Mr. Yelton. Sharon Oxendine, your turn.
Good evening, Commissioner and Commissioner's Chair. Thank you so much. I'm Sharon Oxendine, and I am the Western Women's Business Center Director, which is a program of Carolina Small Business Development Fund, which is a CDFI, which is a Community Development Financial Institution. The Western Women's Business Center opened its doors in 2014. We were located then at Eagle Market Streets, and now we're located in Candler, North Carolina. We are a program that offers technical assistance, access to capital, business coaching, lending, and networking for women entrepreneurs. We also offer classes for our Latino clients in Spanish and also provide them with support in loan development in Spanish. I'm here to thank you for last year, your support. Our metrics are that we were able to provide business development training for 186 businesses. This includes a number of women of color, and also that was 80% women. We helped to create 34 jobs and lent out $2.9 million were deployed here in Buncombe County. This amount accounts for 50% women, and 50% of those were also low income. We just wanted to come forward and thank you for your support and your ongoing support of the economic development of our clients and the work that we're doing. We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Sharon. All right. Anybody else? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:30. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir, in the back. And anybody else? I'm sorry. Is anybody else? Please raise your hand high. All right. You'll be our last speaker. Yeah.
I don't intend to speaking actually, but
That's all right.
My name is Anthony Thomas, and I am currently the board chair of the YMI. I realize that our ask was not funded this go around, but I would like to encourage you to reconsider it, even if it's not at the full ask amount. The YMI is currently under some new leadership, and we've had a huge transition in our board. Since that transition, we have been very active in terms of engaging the community, having folks come through the doors of an institution that has been a staple in the black community for a very long time. We've been engaging the youth, which is where we started. We ran a spring camp for kids who were out of school during spring break and were not allowed to go on spring break. I myself, reluctantly, I survived, but helped out with that program. And right now we're currently a working board. For a long time, the YMI has kind of sat dormant. And we're in the midst of trying to resurrect that place. And so we do need some support from the county, if at all possible. And I just would ask that you all maybe reconsider maybe supporting this organization. It's the oldest African-American cultural center in the country. And it's a jewel here in our community in downtown Asheville. And so I want to ask that you all maybe reconsider.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. All right. Thank you all for taking time to come talk to us about the budget. It's one of the most important decisions the county makes each year. So we really appreciate hearing everybody's feedback and ideas as we move towards a vote at our next meeting. So thank you all. All right. The next item on our agenda is the second hearing on our second consideration of the residential solid waste franchise collections contract.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you close the
Yeah,
public
I'm
hearing?
sorry. We closed the public hearing at 6:16. Thanks. All right. We'll just take just a second as folks.
Darn, I thought everybody was here to see us.
I know. Sorry, Dave.
Deflator.
It's not about.
Hey, we're good with that, man. That's good.
Okay. Okay, we'll come back to it. Thanks. Sorry about that, if I looked over that. Ms. Pender, is it just an update on the manager report? Do you want to just do a quick update on it? Sure. And then we'll come to you, Dane. So sure. Just hang tight for just a sec.
So I'm going to ask Attorney Fruit to talk about Ferry Road and where we are on Ferry Road purchase or sale.
So on the Ferry Road.
Okay, if folks could please, we need to keep the meeting going, so just please try to be quiet on your way out. Thanks.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Board. The Ferry Road property has been under contract since February 2018 with a group out of California, Carnegie Holdings LLC. They offered $5,250,000. They paid a 5% down payment, $262,500. It'll all be refundable if they pulled the plug, except that if you recall last fall, they extended due diligence for 9 months, and they've paid $75,000, which is non-refundable. The closing date and due diligence date deadline is now June 22nd, and they have requested 4 months additional time of due diligence. The reason for this is based on completing DOT approvals, easement acquisition as may be required, and any further design criteria or designing that would need to be done. The issue boils down to the traffic impact analysis and what they would do with the northbound side of NC 191 and Dry Ferry Road. So they're thinking about either a one-lane scenario, which requires 70% input of those who live on Dry Ferry Road, or a two-lane scenario. They favor a two-lane, but the two parties, DOT and this developer, haven't reached an agreement as to what to do. We have reached out to DOT to try to get them to just say what is required. And what we want to do now is try to negotiate with them, because the surest and quickest way to sell this property is to stick with this buyer. If we do drop this buyer backs out, then we're starting again from scratch for the development approval process, which will again take a year at least, probably 16 or 18 months. So we want to work with that developer, see if we can come to terms for an extension for the requested 4 months, and want to report back to this board on June 18th as to a recommendation for extension if we can come to terms, or to let you know the status of the current contract.
What's the amount that they're paying monthly for the option?
It was $10,000 a month for the last 6 months plus $5,000, so it's a grand total of $75,000. That is expired essentially. So we would need to come to terms and for what extra consideration would be required to extend it, and that's what we'd have to negotiate here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Are you asking for feedback? Or what
That's just a report.
Or is it just an update?
We're going to come make a recommendation or give you a status report on the 18th.
Okay. Do we have a closed session tonight?
That's a great purchase.
We can't go into closed session.
Okay, all right, so you're just giving us an update, and you're going to give us a further update?
Yeah, the
in near
closed
future.
session requirements don't apply for
I'm
a sale.
just
They
asking,
do
so-
for an acquisition, but not a sale.
All right. All right, well, thank you for the update. All right. Dane, you're up. Mr. Peterson, so this is our second discussion of the waste franchise contract, so.
Yes, sir.
Thanks
Mr.
for being
Chairman,
with us. Yep.
members of the board, thank you. And as you said, Mr. Chairman, we're here to make a second recommendation on the second reading of the franchise contract proposal. And pursuant to the solid waste ordinance, our solid waste ordinance, 2 votes by the Board of Commissioners are required prior to the granting of a franchise agreement. The Board of Commissioners approved the first reading by a vote of 7-4 and 0 against during the May 21st, 2019 meeting. And wanted to acknowledge Chip Jingles, Regional Vice President, is here with us this evening. And so just to review some of the key contract components that's being proposed, this is a 5-year base term contract with two 2-year extension options. This is going to be a rollout cart-based system, and if you recall in the previous meeting, Waste Pro provided some samples of the rollout cart containers, and in efforts to put eyes on those and get an understanding of what those look like. The weekly waste collection, that's happening now. That will continue through the new contract. And one of the key changes is the every other week recycling collection. We're encouraged by the expansion in automated and alternate fuel vehicles that are proposed for the collection fleet, and also the incorporating in the new contract the accountability measures, including the liquidated damages schedule relating to performance violations if they occur during operations, and the performance bond requirement that will be required for the duration of the contract. So, there was, I think, some good dialogue, good communication back and forth in the previous meeting, and during the meeting, and then following up, we've had citizen questions, comments about certain components of the contract, and some of the items we've been hearing about is the recycling component, and we understand that's a change, and obviously people are curious about that, wanting to know, okay, how does that impact me as a citizen or as a subscriber, and the carts that we talked about, the subscriber will have size options on the waste and the recycling side. So the 96, the 64, and the 48 gallon sizes will be options for the citizens. Different households, different number of people in the houses, different amounts of materials generated that have to be managed. So I think that's a good option for folks to have those different sizes. And we certainly feel that the cart provides adequate volume to transition to the every other week collection. The city of Asheville currently is structured the same way, with the rollout carts and the every other week recycling collection. And as we know, they manage a substantial amount of material through that program. Currently, most subscribers are utilizing the blue bag system, which, in the world we're in now, with the contamination impacts that we're seeing across the board in the recycling industry, this is a big step towards, the fact that the blue bag itself is contamination in the single stream recycling. That's a big step of moving towards contamination reduction efforts. And also, currently subscribers are required to buy the bags themselves, the blue bags, and the average cost on those is around $8 for a 60 count, the 13 gallons. So obviously with the container, that they would no longer have the need to buy the blue bags. We certainly anticipate an increase in participation, and that's encouraging for us. Even with all the challenges that we face in the recycling industry, the markets, we still have a burden and want to invest in recycling because we know ultimately that it conserves natural resources and extends our active landfill life. The reduction in collection efficiency also works towards reducing carbon emissions because you're essentially cutting the collection frequency in half. So there's impacts there with how many trucks are going out to pick up those routes. So I just want to discuss some of those. We've gotten some feedback on that, and wanted to try to clarify that. Obviously the next 6 months, pending a decision this evening, is going to be just that, education. That's huge with any recycling initiative. Probably number one at the top is getting out, communicating, using our platforms to reach out and touch the residents and help them understand what goes in the blue bin, what goes in the green bin. So the bowling balls, the clothes, the food, that doesn't go in the recycle side. So there is a disconnect. We have to do our part in education. So
you get bowling balls?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we got some, Barry at Curbside's got some pictures. It's impressive what, because a material can scientifically be recycled doesn't mean there's a buyer on the back end. So that's something there's a lot of wishful recycling. People in general want to do the right thing. People want to do the right thing, and that this should be recycled. But on the back end, we see the contamination side of that as well.
I mean, I'm getting a visual of the person that goes out and picks up that bag that's got that bowling ball in it. I mean, mercy.
Yes, sir. So those are certainly efforts we see moving forward and working in conjunction with Waste Pro, Buncombe County, Waste Pro, and getting educating on recycling, but also this transition to the cart-based system. So that is the recommendation before you this evening, is for this board to approve and execute the 5-year base term contract with Waste Pro, and that would be effective January 1st of 2020.
Okay. All right, thanks, Dan. All right, we've already had an initial vote on this. The ordinance requires a second vote. Are there any questions or comments from any commissioners before we vote on this for the second time?
Yeah, I've got a comment. It's actually a thank you to Dane and Chip and the team at Waste Pro. I think last week I got an email and even an additional contact on a concern out in the subdivision. I went out to see the individual. Dane was out there in just a few minutes. The team from Waste Pro was there, and the concern that occurred was taken care of in a very professional and positive way, and even reviewing some of the contract and and standing up and taking accountability for that particular issue. And I've learned that when someone has an issue and you fix that issue, it's called recovery, and those people are way more likely to recommend you than the ones that never have a problem at all. And I believe y'all really want an advocate. Not that you needed it, but you did a good job, and I wanted to thank you for that. I think it was about a week ago, but I appreciate it. The only questions I had was some concerns from people that said, hey, you're cutting the recycling pickup, and they were concerned about that because they recycle more. But I think if you educate them on the size of the containers, surely they, if they do more recycling, they can get a bigger container for recycling, and so
Yes, sir.
I would think that would be helpful. But y'all worked hard on the contract. I think it's a good one, and I'll be supporting it. So.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, we have already taken public comment on this once, so I don't think we're going to do that again tonight. So is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, and I
Thank
look
you.
forward to working with you, and we will stay in touch as we move into the next phase. So, all right, the next item on the board is regarding the Communication Department's recommendations for filming rules within the county commission chambers. And go ahead, Cataldo.
Good evening, Chairman. We have a couple of recommendations for broadcasting and recording during meetings. Can we get the slide up here? Great. Our recommendations are on the right here. We think, let me start over here. Do you want me to go line by line and just read them out, or do you?
Or if you want to summarize,
Sure.
however you would prefer to.
A doesn't change much. The only part that changes is that anybody's allowed to film or record as long as they don't impede the vision of any audience members. B is we had a fire marshal come in and kind of check the space, and they recommended that photographers and videographers can't block the ingress or egress from the meeting room, and areas around the doors and exits must be kept clear due to fire code. C, we've established that a short-term media zone located between the front right pillar here and the desk can be used by media, photographers, videographers for a maximum of 10 minutes per meeting. And D, a long-term media zone located in the back of the room here will be reserved for permanent placement of cameras and used by media, photographers, and videographers. And the last part is that the board reserves the right to designate where any and all recording devices and operating personnel may be placed anytime during the meeting. That's what we recommend, and that's all I got.
Okay, all right, thank you, Cataldo. All right, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on the proposal? And we know that the media likes to cover the news, not be the news, but anyway, we appreciate y'all being here tonight and would welcome, of course, any feedback from members of the media as well. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Daniel Walton. I live in unincorporated Buncombe County towards the east in Asheville. On behalf of the Mountain Express, which has served Western North Carolina as an independent alternative weekly newspaper for the past 25 years, I just want to share some concerns regarding the proposed changes to the board's policy on broadcasting and recording meetings. Although Express supports the provision of safe ingress and egress from the board's meetings at all times, we believe that the proposed rules go beyond what's necessary to ensure safety and have the potential to hinder the news media's ability to report in a comprehensive manner. As you know, according to NC General Statute 143-318.14, a public body must allow recording equipment, quote, to be placed within the meeting room in such a way as to permit its intended use, and the ordinary use of such equipment shall not be declared to constitute undue interference. As you no doubt understand, ordinary is easier said than found in the world of local government. While reporters may remain in their seats or filming locations for 99% of the time spent covering government meetings, some circumstances require flexibility to obtain the true story. Presentations, protests, groups of speakers, other happenings in government chambers require reporters to seek different camera angles or to record sounds from places other than the back of the room or a designated short-term zone. In seeking the story, media members may temporarily obstruct the view of audience members, even while remaining in compliance with all fire codes regarding ingress and egress. A generous interpretation of the state statute, without additional regulations imposed at the local level, will give reporters the flexibility to do their jobs with accuracy, interest, and depth. Therefore, I encourage this board to postpone adoption of the policy and revisit its language around the positioning of reporters and recording devices. I also encourage staff members to provide information about the concerns that may have motivated the drafting of this policy, which has not yet been explained to the public. Thank you for your time and consideration of the freedom of the press, which is the bedrock of the republic for which we stand and of this honorable county.
All right, thank you, Daniel. Anyone else?
Jerry.
Mr. Yelton and then Mr. Rice.
The idiot again. Question. Are you going to put a light up here or over there on the diocese in front of that section? And you're going to turn it on, it'll be green for, like 8.5 minutes, then it'll go yellow, and then in the last 15, 20 seconds, it'll go red. So that you won't have to time it, Brownie up there and tell them when to sit down. Because if you do this, you better put a light over there so they could, you can time everybody the same. Because that's what's caused this problem. 2 young men were sued, taken to court, and ended up finding $2,000 apiece for being right where WLOS is at. Nothing against WLOS. I kid them about being we're lost in outer space, but that's okay. That's a joke. And I hope most of them know that. But that's what brought this whole thing on. And then Jerry's at the back, and they're here. So we talk about equality and treating everybody the same. So you're going to have to put a clock over there. So be sure and put a clock so everybody will get the same 10 minutes if you pass this, okay?
All right, thanks. Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I do appreciate you bringing this up, but it shouldn't take years for me to tell the chairman and the board that this is an issue. If you cannot enforce the policy that you have in place at this moment, how can you enforce the one coming forward? WLOS shouldn't even be over at a day like this. Your policy already says you need to be in the back of the room. You won't even enforce that. And that goes for you, Mr. Chairman. You're the one that should call this. And you other leaders should tell the chairman if you don't see it, he don't see it. So if you ain't going to enforce it, there ain't no use to make a policy. But I do appreciate you bringing this up. Now, there is something here that I think would help you if you would reorganize your position here with the person that's speaking here. I know you want to see them and you want to hear them. Well, don't you think the TV wants to see them and hear them? They have to get it off of the screen up there, just like I do. If you'd position the speaker in some form here that they could get a shot from the back room, and they got a better camera than I, and I can get your eyeballs in mine. I think that would go a long ways. Don't set the room up for you. Set it up for the audience and the people that's coming. Because you can hear it. You got pictures up here on the screen. You can sit and look at them. I don't have to be looking at you in your eyeball. You can look on the screen just like we do out there in the audience. So I think that would be something to consider, is the position of a person. Thank you very much, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
thank you. Anybody else? All right, Cataldo, I have a question. So if the recommendation, that would cover the whole area that's outlined in tape on the floor currently?
Yes.
So if folks want to come up and get a closer up shot of whatever's going on in the meeting from that vantage point, that's the whole area that would be covered?
Yes, that would be the short-term media zone, so they can come up, get close-ups, film, and then move.
Okay. Questions from the commission or any comments?
Just to, maybe someone else can clarify or Cataldo, but just wanting to engage the critique we heard about limiting media members' mobility and access. Cataldo, can you speak a little more to the intent of sort of Section A around, like, what not impeding the vision of audience members means? Is that a significant, lasting impediment to the vision of audience members? Is there a...
From the short-term media zone?
No,
just-
I
guess
it just seems like maybe
technically-
if we wordsmith a tiny bit, we might be able to.
I don't,
make-
I mean, I don't really see an issue with, you know, with a camera in the back of the room that has, you know, great, you know, capacity to be able to zoom in and be able to cover a story. I think they can do that and cover it. I think the purpose of this was to create fairness between those that have to stand in the back all the time and those that can use this area up here. I still see flexibility and, you know, from the comments from, you know, Mountain Express, I support, you know, those comments and being flexible. And it's like when the people were here and they raised their signs up. I mean, nobody run them out of the room. You know, we just asked them to lower their signs. And if somebody was taking too much time up here, the interesting thing about up here is that, you know, when we have good news and we have all kinds of other things going on, you know, and there are families here and they're wanting to take pictures of their kids, and, you know, they'll know they can come up there and do that. And if someone is filming, you know, wants to film the entire meeting or an extended period of time, they can do that from the back, which frees us up, you know, for people to come up and not have to worry about falling over equipment. And I don't see it as being a restriction, because I think anything that we do like this, you know, will have to be reasonable, and we'll do what, you know, what makes sense. But that's my take on it. So.
I just have one question, and again, you know, the media folks want to cover the news, not make it, but just in terms of Daniel, your comments, do you have any other specific suggestions for, you know, specific changes that we might want to consider as part of this? Because I think we do want to give folks a chance to get a little closer if they want to get some coverage of what's happening up here. But I think we want to, you know, we think that's an appropriate place to do it so it doesn't block views. And we want to be fair to all the media so that everyone could have a chance to do that, but that's not where folks are kind of permanently parked. So, I mean, we're open to ideas. Any specific suggestions? And if you do, please make them at the mic so we can hear them.
I think there should be more discussion on this.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we'd want to take some time and look at the layout of the room. I agree with Mr. Rice that the layout of the room, especially for those of us without particularly high-powered cameras, is not particularly conducive to getting, for example, reaction shots from far back in the room of commissioners. I suppose Express is just concerned about the imposition of any restrictions beyond what's currently written in the state statute, which seems to be fairly strong.
All right. And make sure I'm clear. So in terms of media sitting on the front row, that's permissible, and they can have cameras. It's just if you're setting up a tripod or something like that,
Yes.
that's where
And that goes back to
that's where that would
Jasmine's-
need to be located. If you're setting up that kind of equipment, is that right?
Right, and that goes back into the A, as long as you're not impeding the vision. So you can actually set up in the front row if your camera was below audience level.
Yeah.
Okay.
In my opinion.
All right. Commissioners, other thoughts? Are people ready to act? I heard Commissioner Fryer say he'd like to maybe take a little more time.
Honestly, I do think we ought to take a little more time with it. It's a quick deal. We're just really learning about it. And Mountain Express, he made a good case for it. And I'd look at it in a different form, totally. How do you come up with the square footage or what we've got there in the room now? Could it be smaller? Could it be larger? And I do see them get up every now and then with their cameras and try to take pictures of the people over here, and they are in front of the audience, but it's not really hurting them at the time. So they got to, like all of us, got a camera now.
Well, I think even that though wouldn't necessarily be prohibited if someone, it's the setting up of the equipment, I think that's kind of more regulated by if we adopted these rules. If someone stood up briefly and took a picture, I don't know, would that be
No,
stepping
that
outside the
wouldn't
policy?
No.
It's called blocking the audience.
I guess that would kind of fall under, the board reserves the right to designate where. So if we're taking pictures, that's kind of usually it's designated for that time.
Right.
So does that
You know,
answer your question?
We've got a box, and that's what we got, Brownie.
What I'd like to point out, I want to be fair to the media, and I know First Amendment rights, that goes for all of us. But let's not forget, folks, one of the main reason that we have this meeting twice a month is for our constituents. And I don't want to make it where they're blocked, they can't see, and they can't participate, because that's who I want to hear from.
So I got a thought, throw it at the commission. I don't have a problem supporting this because I think we're going to do what's reasonable and when it comes to this. I do agree with Commissioner, Whiteside's comments. We have, and I get challenged, when you're talking about angles, I get challenged by constituents, and people in the audience watch me, and they watch me if I'm listening and paying attention. And in order for me to do that, I got to look at you, and it's not, to make me, more comfortable or better. It's just the fact when a constituent comes up here and talks, we need to be looking at that constituent. We need to be listening to that constituent, and we are accountable to pay attention to that. And even if it's 10 o'clock at night, it don't matter. We're supposed to do that. So I like that, but I think we could easily add a F on this for chairman discretion on the policy. And I don't know how to word that. You guys,
Well, I think it does say that we can modify these rules on a case-by-case basis.
At any time.
But I think that the,
at any time during the meeting.
even part of the idea is that we have a pretty standard way of doing things so that people know what the rules are and can rely on them. So I would not want to.
Okay.
I hope we can come up with something we can pretty consistently follow.
I mean, I think that, coming up and, the larger cameras being in the back and having discretion to where if someone needs to take a picture, they just step up there in that area and take their picture, and, and that's just being reasonable with that process and not, people will get used to that, where they can go and what they can do. But somebody stands up and takes a picture, I don't see anybody in the commission going, hey, y'all need to sit down. I don't see anything like that happening at all. But I'm just talking.
Can we ask Raphael?
We're dying to know your views on this.
Can we ask your perspective on this?
See?
Because, you've been there for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah,
probably
we've been
for a
flexible,
reason.
man.
What's
You've been
the
there the
reason?
whole night. Well, we could change that.
I think it is, actually.
It's not.
Shh.
Our managers are working on a response to this recommendation.
Ringing endorsement or not so much?
Are they fired up?
Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, before voting on this, I would actually really like to hear the perspective of the local media on it, as they'd be the ones who'd be most impacted. So it seems like we're very close to coming up with something that's reasonable and respects First Amendment.
I think that's a great idea. I'd love to hear their feedback.
Yeah.
All right. So Commissioner Fryer, others have suggested we not act on it tonight. Does anybody have a burning desire to make a motion on this? Otherwise, we could just plan on taking this up at our next meeting. We can all think about it a little bit more. If there's other folks in the community or media who have feedback for us, that'll give us some time to hear it.
before you say next meeting, let us table it, let's meet with the media and staff and look to see if there's anything we need to do as a staff to realign the office. And let us come back when we have fully fleshed that out. So instead
Well-
of just saying next meeting, just let us work on it and bring it back when it's ready.
Well, you're gonna have to, you're gonna need a motion to move this to a date certain or something like that, right?
I don't think so.
Were we not planning on voting on this tonight or not?
We can or we can't. If no one makes a motion, we just move on.
No one makes a motion to die.
Well, it doesn't die. There's no motion made. We just haven't taken any action on it. Yeah. All right, that sounds fine. I'll say for myself, I think it's I think we're heading in the right direction. So, but I'm open to ways to, tweak it or modify it. So, any last comments before we move on to the next item? All right, thanks everyone for your feedback, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is establishment of the Parks, Greenways, and Recreation Advisory Board for Buncombe County, and Josh O'Connor, Recreation Services Director, will present this item.
Good evening. So, Josh O'Connor, the Recreation Services Director. In your packet this evening, you had. Can you not hear me?
No, you gotta get in them.
Let me get up in it. Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, that mic's too low.
So in your packet, you have both the resolution and a board member job description establishing the Parks, Greenway, and Recreation Advisory Board. What we've tried to do with the resolution is remove some of the language that made the appointments prescriptive, make it all open to a wide sector of the community while using that community or that job description to describe the types of community members that we were looking for, but to still allow the commission the ultimate discretion as to who's appointed. There are 3 members that will be appointed from each district when the board's completely full, and the resolution aligns the board to consider items that are relevant to parks, greenways, and recreation. The ultimate purpose of the board is going to be not only to collect citizen feedback, but to help us find the best ways to reach the broadest segment of our population and to understand how we can promote the message of what we're already doing in parks and recreation, along with our works and greenways to reach the widest segment of our population and our citizens. And so with that, can I answer any specific questions on the structure of the board or anything we intend to do here?
All right, great. Thanks, Josh. Any initial questions, or we'll go ahead and take public comment on the proposal? Actually, why don't we have a motion first? I'll make a motion to approve the resolution establishing the Parks, Greenways, Recreation Advisory Board for Buncombe County.
Second.
All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on the motion? Mr. David Nutter.
Honorable Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager, and Director of Recreational Services. My name is David Nutter. I am a county resident and also an active member of the Connect Buncombe Board of Directors, the City of Asheville Greenway Committee, and Asheville's Multimodal Transportation Commission. We of Connect Buncombe strongly support your creation of a Parks, Recreation, and Greenways Advisory Board, and we have reviewed all of the supporting documents and think they are great. We would like to sustain our long-term commitment to the Greenways part of the committee's purview, and we promise to do so vigorously. We will help you in every way we can with all the resources and energies we can contribute, including support for the continued implementation of the excellent Buncombe County Greenway Master Plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Allison Glacken. I'm a resident of Biltmore Lake, and I'm the Vice President of Connect Buncombe. And I want to begin by saying thank you for the support you have given to parks and greenways in Buncombe County, particularly with the funding approval that you provided last year. We're looking forward to your continued support. And tonight it might be nice to hear we're not asking for money. We're asking, let us help you. Let the citizens of Buncombe County help you. And with that in mind, we want you to approve the resolution to establish the Parks, Greenways, and Recreation Advisory Board for Buncombe County. We appreciate the work that's gone into writing this proposal, and we feel it's really well thought out. We expect this board will greatly contribute to our county's parks, greenways, and recreation services by engaging those with passion and expertise who will represent the voice of our broad community. So in passing this resolution, we can all look forward to an even happier and healthier Buncombe County.
Great, thanks, Allison. Anybody else? Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I guess y'all remember the CRA, Cultural Recreation Authority. And, you know, they tried to connect that with Raleigh and get a thing passed where you make a slush fund for the recreation department. That's before you, Mr. County Manager. And you'll understand what it was, because this was a big deal. And Mr. Gant was very surprised when it got thrown out from the legislator. And the big money thing was that they put like $3.5 million in it, and then they was going to grow that fund, and then there's going to have a separate bank account. So what I'm pointing all this out for is, you know, history repeats itself a lot of times. So to save the taxpayer money, advisory board is okay, as long as it stays in that capacity and the resolution is not going to push it into something else for the future. Because, you know, the taxpayers are going to be funding something again. Yeah, this is the first step for the long journey. So I'm in it for the long journey. The taxpayers don't need to be footing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments or questions from the board?
I have a quick question. I'm glad to see this board happening and taking shape. My question is, is there a plan in place to ensure that there is a diverse representation of board members that are supporting parks and greenways equally to keep that balance somewhat level?
The approach that we're using is adding some additional questions to the existing application for all boards and commissions. We'll use those to kind of understand the spread of the applicants that we have and present some type of ranked or some type of criteria sheet that allows you to understand what background each individual has and what they're bringing to the board when you make your selection as a board of commissioners.
Thank you.
And like the library board, are you going to make sure that all districts are represented?
Per the resolution, each district has 3 commissioners appointed from it, so yes.
So do we have to make a motion for this?
Already have.
Already have?
Yeah.
Shows I'm paying attention, doesn't it?
Front-loaded it.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. One is, Josh, how do you see, you know, I'm looking for, you know, a vision statement or some kind of statement in here. Maybe that'll come from the board, but I see that under your direction on, you know, meeting the needs of families in, you know, in Buncombe County. How do we do that? You know, I think Commissioner Edwards, you know, kind of teed this up a little bit. You know, I've had a concern for years, not that we could invest or should have been investing more money in our parks, and I've been pretty vocal on that. You know, doesn't mean that we've not done a good job in your department at all. That's up here, and I've seen, you know, in this
at least twice, the Buncombe County Greenways Master Plan is in there at least a couple of times. And so I will applaud Connect Buncombe on your advocacy, because y'all have all obviously done a really good job. Just want to make sure that as we move forward, that we've got that we do as an equal job in advocating for the local parks, accessible parks, expanding the usability of our parks. And I think we've started on that, and I appreciate that. But I want to make sure that we, as people are appointed to this board, that we're not leaning in just one direction on that. That we don't forget about that. So, and I know I'm preaching to the choir for you, because I know you've done a tremendous amount of research on that, and I hope the commission will get behind that kind of thought process also. I did see in here that, as Commissioner Whiteside alluded to, that it's someone from each district, and that we're also paying attention to make sure that we're getting folks that represent all areas of economic blessings, if I could say it that way, on how people that we're getting input from everybody. Because I've said it before, if you drive around Buncombe County and you see a lot of the little swing sets in people's yards, and then maybe 2 or 3 years later you go back and they're not as maintained. Well, that's that individual's attempt to do a park for their child. And so we need to look at those areas and make sure we've got those parks, and make sure they're covered, make sure they can use them in the summertime, and so on. So I just want to make sure that we're heading in that direction, and I think that we are. So for that reason, I'll be supportive of it.
Great. All right. I just want to say before we vote, I want to say thanks to Josh. There's obviously been a lot of thought that went into the resolution, and thank the county manager working with staff to think about how to create this new public board. I know all these public boards, they all take work, both on the citizens' part and the staff's part. So we don't want to create them, without thinking it through. But I think this is one that's been really well thought out. It's obviously a lot of public interest in both the parks and the recreation and the greenways pieces. So I see this as part of what we're trying to do to provide structures for citizens to be meaningfully involved in what the county is working on. So I know this will probably be a hard one to appoint for, because I bet there'll be a ton of really interested and really well qualified people. So, but I'm excited about it and appreciate everyone helping get it to here tonight. Any other comments before we vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, Josh.
Thank you all.
All right. We don't have any board appointments this evening, I don't think. So we now come to general public comment. Folks are welcome to comment on any matters that we've not already previously taken comment on in the meeting this evening. Anybody who would like to talk to us about any other items under public comment? Mr. Yelton.
Well, I'll repeat a comment that I made a minute ago. I guess the rules doesn't preclude that, of the 1 step forward and 2 steps backward. And I want to congratulate the staff in the county on working on televising the pre-meeting. I understand you all they tried to do it last Friday, and it was kind of like that rocket that we were going to shoot to the moon. It kind of fizzled out, so I told him that means he's in good company. He's trying to do a big task. So I'm very positive about that, and I appreciate that. And I thank the staff and elected commissioners that helped bring that about. I would like to know what a library costs, and I'd like to know how many people ride the bus. So let's see if some of you commissioners will start pushing for that. Now for the 2 steps back. I called and asked for a hard copy of the budget summary, the 53 pages. And I went through 5 people. 5 people. I was told, well, we wanted to save paper, that they were cutting back, had no printed copies, and I could go to somebody's office and look at it. I don't want to look at it. I want it in my hand because, as you know, if you're looking at something that's financial, Al, it helps to have the hard copy so you can look back and forth in the pages, and it's hard to do that in the computer. So I called and left a message for the county manager. And then I got a call back that said, we're not going to do it. No, no, no. Now, that's a very serious problem for me, because if anybody up there has seen a hard copy of that budget, those 53 pages, by law, I have the right to see it. And by law, there can be no gatekeeper of the information. So whoever published that has, by law, have to give me a copy of it. I also sent an email to all 7 commissioners. I got a reply and comment back from 3. Y'all figure out which 3 it is. See, you want me to use my paper. I didn't hit, didn't he? Wasn't even light, wasn't lit. What happened?
I'm not sure. Did was it the full 3 minutes? Okay, hang on. We'll make sure.
I understand. That's okay, because I'm about through, Brownie. Trust me. I got it down pretty
go
close
ahead.
to 3 minutes
Just
anyway. You know that.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
Bottom line is, I have to use my ink, and a little printer at home takes all that time. And by law, you can charge me 5 cents a copy, because that's about what it costs to do it. So I'm going to request a hard copy, and I'm giving a copy of a lawsuit that I sued Buncombe County. I was one of the 3. Because Wanda Green tried to set up a method where we had to go through that process to get public information. That lawsuit, Judge Lotto Cabinet's ruling.
Mr. Yelton, please return to the Mr. Yelton, please return to the podium.
I have a right.
All right, you need to return to the podium.
You remember that, don't you?
If people have information they want to give to the commission, they should give it to the clerk. All right, that's going to be our protocol. All right, anybody else? Thank you. Mr. Rice. All right, you can get next, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the question on the media and where they stand at over here, there's a question here that's bigger than the media. Your fire marshal must not have something between his ears. I don't think he looked at the real issue. He's only looking at the media. And I'm just as much of the media as WLOS, by the way. I'm just as important whether you think that or not. I might not publicize you as good as they do, but I'm still important. The concern that I have it's not just about the media. Tonight, you saw them lined up along the wall back there. You ain't supposed to do that. That is the egress of people. If you look on your sign over yonder, you got to have that open for people to file out. They're not supposed to stand over there. You're supposed to have an overrun room somewhere. I don't care if there's 8 of them that's overrunning, they need to go to the overrun room. I'm going to educate you whether you do anything about it or not, because when a fire comes and something happens, you're going to be on the legal end, and the lawyer can advise you on that one. Now I'm going to show you something else about the fire people. If you think a fire marshal can leave that mess out there where you go through the walking gate and call that okay, he needs to be examined himself. Now, the other thing is when you get down the hallway and turn the corner, here's a big old desk, bigger than this, sitting in the middle of the egress too. And then you go downstairs to get off the elevator and you find another big one down there, and the sheriff ain't down there anymore. Now, if a fire marshal can't understand his own rules that he should go by, why should I have to be up here telling you on the other end? I believe the legal should look into this and get the fire marshal up to speed. Because if you think everybody's going to get out of this room and get down through past all this crap in the hallway and the desk out front where you got your secretary, you better be rethinking this. Because if something bad did happen, you're going to be on the hook for liability. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Right.
I am Dewana Little, and I represent the YMI Cultural Center. I was not here for the public comment around economic development, so this is not a repeat. This is me addressing the issue of the lack of funding, the no funding to the YMI Cultural Center, given our historical relevance to this city and this community and the Black community as a whole. So I would like to start off by thanking you, Jasmine. I was at the last meeting when y'all was talking about your budgetary considerations, and I love the form that Rachel gave out that actually showed how each commissioner voted and showed where the money was actually going. That's always been a question, because it was always been an issue, the lack of transparency, and that really provided it in that meeting. But at the same time, only one commissioner voted for us. Only one commissioner voted to preserve a historically Black agency in Asheville. We wasn't asking for programming funds. We wasn't asking for funds to support initiatives. We was asking for gap funding to support our agency as we utilize the funding that we received through another grant to restore the building so that we could have full capacity of the building and be able to have a greater impact within the community. Given the statistics of Black Asheville that y'all have all been aware of, y'all had presentation after presentation to talk about the disparities. When y'all say equity, we're using an equity lens. I really want to understand y'all definition of equity. Because if you're using an equity lens and you're not putting the racial equity to it, given the disparities that are across racial lines, that's not just the city. Yes, say the state of Black Asheville, but when we check our box for which county we live in, it's Buncombe County. And I just want y'all to reconsider funding and how y'all support these agencies that are working on the ground in these communities of color to address the issues that grow drastically worse each year. That's not year one. This is not the first time we heard this. This year after year after year, while funding goes to other agencies that we repeatedly fund year after year after year. I sit in these meetings for these funding sessions while the situation gets worse for the Black community. I would like for y'all, when y'all use y'all equity lens, that's the new buzz term, to put racial in front of it. That's the uncomfortable term that we like to drop off to the side, but it's the reality. The Black community is suffering. There is oppression. We need access, and y'all are in a position to provide it. So I would like to ask y'all to consider that when y'all think about the YMI, as y'all consider y'all budgetary line items. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Little. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Catherine Mitchell, and I'm Executive Director of the Riverfront Development Group. I have comments to each of you as commissioners. Riverfront is working to bring forth the history of the Stevens Lee High School from 1923 to 1965. There is no coherent record of student attendance, student graduations, achievements, and accomplishments. And that's a shame on this city and this county. All of those records were destroyed when the school was deconstructed in 1965. There was no effort to maintain any records. And our process at this moment is to try to put together a history of our shared community, our shared existence as a people. As of now, anyone who attended Stevens Lee has no history except personal memories. There's no filing of diplomas. How do you prove that you even graduated from high school if you attended that school from 1923 to 1965? I agree with Dewana. all of these projects have to be viewed in the context of race. It can't be avoided. The other point that I want to make is a point about access and information. It's my understanding as of yesterday that many of the strategic partnership applicants have met with you individually to explain their projects, to go over their goals, to get your input in terms of what needs to be added. That information is not and was not available to the African American community. I would have visited each of you for an entire year explaining what this project is and what it means to the community. So, in your future process, I certainly hope that you will include that every applicant has the opportunity to approach each commissioner on an equal basis, that your doors are open, and that any applicant can approach you to explain their application. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Anyone else? All right, we have just a couple of announcements before we adjourn. On June 18th at noon, the county commissioners will hold their pre-meeting at 200 College Street on the first floor conference room in downtown Asheville. And then that afternoon at 5 p.m., the county commissioners' regular meeting will be held at 200 College Street here in room 326. We're adjourned.